The coffee tasted like burnt cardboard, but Lucas Prescott ordered it anyway, because it gave him another 5 minutes to watch her move between the tables with that effortless grace that seemed entirely out of place in a roadside diner. He had stumbled into Rosie's diner 3 weeks ago purely by accident, taking a wrong turn after a grueling board meeting that had run past midnight. His driver had the night off, and Lucas had been too wired to go straight home, so he had gotten behind the wheel himself and just driven. When hunger finally caught up with exhaustion, he had pulled into the first lit establishment he saw. That was when he first laid eyes on Brianna Shaw. She had been refilling the sugar dispensers at 2 in the morning, humming something under her breath, completely absorbed in her task. Her dark blonde hair had been pulled back in a ponytail, and she wore the standard diner uniform of a blue dress and white apron. But there was something about the way she carried herself that made Lucas forget about the files waiting for him at home, the merger he was supposed to finalize, the quarterly reports that needed his signature. When she had looked up and smiled at him, asking what she could get him, Lucas had felt something shift in his chest that he had not experienced in his 32 years of life. Now, 3 weeks later, he was back for the 21st consecutive day, sitting in the same booth by the window, ordering the same mediocre coffee and whatever special Brianna recommended. His assistant had started giving him concerned looks when he arrived at the office later than usual, and his business partner had actually asked if everything was okay at their last meeting. Lucas Prescott, CEO of Prescott Manufacturing, the man who had turned his late father's struggling factory into a multi-million-dollar enterprise producing sustainable building materials, was rearranging his entire schedule around a diner waitress. The logical part of his brain, the part that had negotiated deals worth millions and made split-second decisions that affected hundreds of employees, told him this was ridiculous. The rest of him did not care. More coffee. Brianna appeared at his table, pot in hand, that same warm smile on her face that had become the highlight of his increasingly chaotic days. "Please." Lucas watched as she poured, noticing the calluses on her hands, the faint tiredness around her eyes that makeup could not quite hide. "Long shift." "They are all long," she said with a laugh that sounded only slightly strained, "but I am not complaining. Tips have been good this week." She moved to leave, but Lucas found himself speaking before he could stop himself. "The meatloaf was excellent tonight." Brianna turned back, her smile brightening into something more genuine. "I will tell Earl. He is always convinced nobody appreciates his cooking." She tilted her head slightly, studying him with an expression he could not quite read. "You have been coming in a lot lately." "Usually the business travelers pass through once and we never see them again." "I like the atmosphere," Lucas said, which was not entirely a lie. The diner had a comfortable, lived-in quality that his sterile downtown apartment lacked. But mostly, he liked watching Brianna interact with the regular customers, learning their names, remembering their usual orders, genuinely caring about their lives in a way that seemed increasingly rare in his world of corporate politics and bottom lines. "Well, we are glad to have you." She glanced over her shoulder as another customer signaled for attention. "I should get back to it. Let me know if you need anything else." Lucas nursed his coffee for another 20 minutes, pretending to review documents on his tablet while actually watching Brianna help an elderly man with his bill, laugh at something a trucker said from the counter, and patiently explain the dessert options to a family with 3 young children. She moved through her work with an ease that spoke of years of practice, but there was also something else there, something that suggested this was not where she had imagined herself ending up. When he finally paid his bill and left what he knew was an excessive tip, Brianna caught his eye from across the diner and gave him a small wave. Lucas carried that image with him all the way back to his penthouse apartment, where he lay awake far too long trying to figure out how to bridge the gap between his world and hers. The next morning, his assistant Rachel placed a folder on his desk with her usual efficiency. "The contractors need your approval on the new warehouse specs. The investment group wants to schedule a call about the expansion, and your mother called to remind you about dinner on Sunday." Lucas flipped through the warehouse documents without really seeing them. "Rachel, what do you know about Rosie's Diner on Highway 47? Rachel's eyebrows rose slightly. "The 24-hour place. I have stopped there a few times on road trips. Good pie." "Why? Just curious." Lucas signed off on the warehouse specs. "How much do waitresses typically make there?" "Hourly, I mean, plus tips." Now Rachel was definitely giving him a look. "I have no idea, but I can find out if you need that information for some reason." "No, never mind." Lucas rubbed his face, feeling the exhaustion of too many late nights catching up with him. "Forget I asked." But Rachel was still standing there, and he had worked with her long enough to recognize that expression. "Whatever you are thinking about doing, maybe just talk to her first like a normal person, instead of whatever complicated scheme is forming in your head." "I do not know what you are talking about." "Right. And you have not been coming in late every morning for 3 weeks straight smelling like diner coffee." Rachel's tone was dry but not unkind. "Just ask her out, Lucas. The worst she can say is no." After Rachel left, Lucas sat at his desk and admitted to himself that she was right. He was approaching this all wrong, treating it like a business problem that needed a complex solution, when really it was quite simple. He wanted to get to know Brianna Shaw better. He wanted to take her somewhere nice, somewhere she did not have to be on her feet for hours serving other people. He wanted to find out what made her laugh, what her dreams were, why someone with her obvious intelligence and warmth was working the night shift at a highway diner. But every time he imagined actually asking her out, complications arose in his mind. What if she said yes, just because she saw him as a generous tipper? What if she found out about his company and thought he was trying to flaunt his wealth? What if the chemistry he felt was entirely one-sided, and he was just another lonely customer to her? Lucas had faced down hostile takeover attempts and navigated union negotiations that could have bankrupted him. But the thought of Brianna politely declining his invitation made his stomach knot. That night, he arrived at the diner at his usual time and found someone else working Brianna's section. The disappointment was sharp and immediate. "She switched shifts with me," the other waitress, whose name tag read Donna, explained when Lucas asked. "Family emergency or something." "She will be back tomorrow." Lucas ordered coffee he did not want and left after 15 minutes, the entire evening feeling off-kilter and wrong. It occurred to him as he drove home that this was getting out of hand. He was organizing his life around someone he had never had a real conversation with, someone who might not even think of him beyond being a regular customer. The next night, Brianna was back, but there was a tension in her shoulders that had not been there before. Her smile seemed more forced, and Lucas noticed her checking her phone between tables with an anxious expression. When she came to take his order, Lucas made a decision. "Is everything okay?" Brianna's professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing genuine surprise. "Oh. Yes, everything is fine. Just one of those days, you know." She pulled out her order pad. "What can I get you?" "The truth," Lucas said quietly. "And maybe you could sit down for a minute. You look like you could use a break." For a long moment, Brianna just looked at him, and Lucas thought he had badly overstepped. Then she glanced around the diner, noted that most of the tables were clear, and slid into the booth across from him. "My brother is in the hospital," she said without preamble. Nothing life-threatening, but he needs surgery and his insurance is fighting the coverage. I have been on the phone with them all day trying to figure out how we are going to pay for it." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Sorry, you probably did not actually want to know all that. You just wanted your dinner." "I wanted to know," Lucas said firmly. "How old is your brother?" 23. "He has this condition with his knee, old sports injury that never healed right. It has gotten worse lately." Brianna rubbed her temples. "I am sorry, I should not be dumping this on you. You are a customer. Maybe I would like to be a friend instead." Brianna met his eyes and something passed between them, some acknowledgement of the thing that had been building for 3 weeks of careful small talk and lingering glances. "I do not even know your name," she said softly. "Lucas." "Lucas Prescott." "Brianna Shaw." She held out her hand, and when Lucas shook it, he felt that same electric connection that had drawn him back to this diner night after night. They talked for 10 minutes before other customers needed attention, but it was enough to crack open the door between them. Lucas learned that Brianna was 27, that she had been working at the diner for 5 years to help support her younger brother after their parents died in a car accident, that she had been 2 semesters away from a degree in education before she had to drop out. "I keep telling myself I will go back," she admitted, "but there is always another bill, another emergency. Someday, though." Lucas wanted to fix all of it immediately, wanted to write a check that would solve her problems and give her back the future she had sacrificed. But he knew instinctively that Brianna Shaw would not accept that kind of help from someone who was essentially a stranger, no matter how many nights he had spent sitting in her section. Instead, he left an even larger tip than usual and drove home with his mind racing through possibilities. Over the next week, Lucas continued his nightly visits, but now he and Brianna actually talked. She would sit with him during her breaks, and he found himself sharing things he rarely discussed with anyone. His complicated relationship with his late father's legacy, the pressure of running a company that so many people depended on, his own abandoned dreams of being an architect instead of a manufacturer. "Why did you not pursue it?" Brianna asked one night, stealing a French fry from his plate with a casualness that suggested they were well past the boundaries of waitress and customer. "Same reason you did not finish your degree," Lucas said. "Responsibility. Obligation. My father built that company from nothing, and when he died, I could not just walk away from it. But you did not want it." "I did not think I did," Lucas corrected. "But I learned to love it in my own way. It is just different from what I imagined." Brianna nodded slowly. "I think about that sometimes. All the versions of our lives we could be living if we had made different choices. Maybe the choices we made are the ones that led us to the right places," Lucas said, holding her gaze. "Maybe we end up exactly where we are supposed to be." The air between them felt charged, and Lucas knew he was running out of time to make his move. It had been a month now, 30 consecutive days of coffee and conversation, and falling progressively harder for a woman who deserved so much more than she had been given. The next night was a Friday, and the diner was busier than usual. Lucas sat in his booth, watching Brianna handle a difficult customer with patience and grace, and made his decision. When she finally made it over to him near the end of her shift, looking exhausted but smiling, he did not give himself time to overthink it. "Go out with me," he said. "Tomorrow night. A proper date, not just me taking up space in your section." Brianna's eyes widened. "Lucas, I do not think that is a good idea." The rejection stung, but Lucas pressed on. "Why not?" "Because you are clearly successful and put together, and I am a waitress who lives in a 1-bedroom apartment with her brother and can barely make rent most months. Because we are from completely different worlds, and those kinds of stories do not work out in real life. You do not know what world I am from, Lucas said quietly, and I would like the chance to prove that maybe our worlds are not as different as you think. Lucas. Brianna glanced around the diner, lowering her voice. I like you. I have liked you since the first night you came in here and you actually looked at me like a person instead of just someone to bring you food. But I cannot afford complications right now. My life is messy and stressful and I am barely holding everything together. Let me take you to dinner, Lucas said. Just dinner. If you have a terrible time, I will never ask again. But I have been coming here every single night for a month because I cannot stop thinking about you, and I think you might feel something too. So please give me one chance. Brianna bit her lip, clearly torn. Then, so quietly Lucas almost missed it, she said, Okay, one date. The relief that flooded through him was disproportionate to the simple acceptance, but Lucas did not care. Tomorrow at 7, I will pick you up. I will meet you somewhere, Brianna countered. I still do not quite trust that you are not some kind of serial killer. Lucas laughed. Fair enough. Do you know the Riverside? It is that Italian place downtown. Something flickered across Brianna's face. Lucas, that place is incredibly expensive. I cannot let you spend that much on a first date. You are not letting me do anything. I want to take you somewhere nice, please. After a long moment, Brianna nodded. Okay, 7 o'clock at the Riverside, but if this goes badly, you find a new diner. Deal. Lucas left that night feeling like he was floating, and when he got home, he did something he had not done in months. He called his mother just to talk. You sound happy, Margaret Prescott said suspiciously. What happened? I have a date tomorrow night. There was a brief pause. With whom? A woman I met. Her name is Brianna. Lucas sank into his couch, grinning at nothing. She is incredible, Mom. Smart and kind and genuine in a way I had forgotten people could be. And she said yes to a date with you. She must be a saint. Thanks for the vote of confidence. His mother's tone softened. I am happy for you, Lucas. You have been working yourself to death for years. It is about time you found someone who makes you remember there is more to life than balance sheets. The next day dragged interminably. Lucas had meetings that required his attention, but he kept catching himself checking the clock, counting down the hours until he could see Brianna outside the familiar confines of the diner. He went home early to change, settling on a dark blue shirt and slacks that his sister had once told him made him look almost human. He arrived at the Riverside 15 minutes early and spent the time second-guessing every decision that had led to this moment. What if Brianna was right and they were too different? What if the easy rapport they had developed at the diner did not translate to a real date? What if she found out exactly how much money he had and it changed everything between them? Then Brianna walked through the door and every doubt evaporated. She wore a simple black dress that probably cost a fraction of what Lucas had paid for his watch, but she looked absolutely stunning. Her hair was down, falling in soft waves around her shoulders, and she had done something subtle with makeup that made her eyes seem even more luminous than usual. Hi, she said a little breathlessly when she reached him. I am not late, am I? You are perfect. Lucas caught himself. I mean, you are right on time, perfectly timed. The timing is perfect. Brianna's nervous expression relaxed into a genuine smile. You are babbling, it is kind of cute. I am not usually like this, Lucas admitted. You make me nervous. Good, I have been a wreck all day. The host led them to a quiet table by the window overlooking the river, and once they were seated with menus they both pretended to read, Brianna said, I need to tell you something before this goes any further. Lucas's heart sank. Okay, I looked you up online last night. Brianna folded her hands on the table. Lucas Prescott, CEO of Prescott Manufacturing, multiple articles about your business success, estimated net worth in the millions. one of the city's most eligible bachelors according to some magazine. Brianna, I almost canceled, she continued, because I figured you either were not who you said you were, or you were slumming it at the diner for some reason I did not understand. But then, I decided that you have been nothing but kind to me for a month, and the least I could do was hear you out. Lucas set down his menu. I was not lying to you or hiding who I was. I just did not lead with my job title because most people treat me differently when they know about the money. You treated me like a regular person, and I have not felt that way in a long time. So why were you really coming to the diner every night? Because of you, Lucas said simply. The first night was an accident, but I came back the second night because I could not stop thinking about the waitress who hummed while she worked and smiled like she meant it. And then I kept coming back because spending an hour talking to you became the best part of my day. Brianna studied him for a long moment. This is crazy. You know that, right? Completely insane, Lucas agreed. But maybe the best things are a little crazy. The waiter appeared to take their order, and the moment of tension broke. They ordered wine and appetizers, and gradually the conversation found its footing. Brianna asked about his work, and Lucas found himself actually explaining the intricacies of sustainable manufacturing with an enthusiasm he usually reserved for meetings with engineers who shared his passion. So you make materials that builders used to create environmentally friendly structures. Brianna clarified. Essentially, we have contracts with several major developers who are committed to reducing their carbon footprint. It is profitable and good for the planet, which is rare in business. That actually sounds really interesting. Do you like it? Lucas considered the question seriously. I do now. It took a while to find the aspects of the company that engaged me, but I realized I could shape it into something that mattered. We employ over 300 people, and I take that responsibility seriously. 300, Brianna repeated softly. I cannot even imagine managing that many people. I stress out when we are short-staffed at the diner and I have to cover extra tables. I doubt that. You seem to handle everything with incredible grace. Brianna laughed. You have never seen me at the end of a double shift when the coffee maker breaks, and we have a bus full of tourists come in. They talked through dinner, the conversation flowing as easily as it had in the diner, but with a new dimension now that they were face to face as equals, rather than customer and waitress. Lucas learned that Brianna loved classic movies, that she had wanted to be an elementary school teacher, that she sang in her church choir, and made a mean apple pie from her grandmother's recipe. I will make you one sometime, she promised, then seemed to catch herself. I mean, if there is a sometime, if this becomes more than just one date. I would like there to be many sometimes, Lucas said, reaching across the table to take her hand. If that is what you want too. Brianna's fingers curled around his. I do, but Lucas, I need you to understand something. I cannot be some project for you to fix. I know my life is not glamorous, but I am proud of what I have built for myself and my brother. I do not need rescuing. I know you do not. That is one of the things I admire most about you. Lucas ran his thumb across her knuckles. I am not here because I want to save you. I am here because you make me laugh and think and feel things I had started to believe I was not capable of feeling. The intensity in Brianna's eyes made Lucas's breath catch. I have thought about you too, she admitted. More than I should have. I would catch myself looking forward to your shift at the same time I was telling myself it was pointless, that we were from different worlds. Maybe we can build our own world, Lucas suggested. One where it does not matter what we do for a living or how much money we have. Just us figuring this out together. That sounds nice. Brianna smiled, a real smile that lit up her entire face. Terrifying but nice. They lingered over dessert, neither wanting the evening to end. When they finally left the restaurant, Lucas walked Brianna to her car and stood in the parking lot, both of them suddenly awkward again. "I had a wonderful time," Brianna said. "Thank you for dinner. Thank you for taking a chance on me." Lucas stepped closer. "Can I see you again?" "Outside the diner, I mean. I will still come by for coffee, but I would like to take you out properly." "I would like that." Brianna rose up on her toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek. "Good night, Lucas." "Good night, Brianna." Lucas watched her drive away, then sat in his own car for several minutes, processing the overwhelming rightness of the entire evening. He had dated before, had even had a few relationships that lasted months, but nothing had ever felt like this. Nothing had ever felt so much like coming home. Over the next 2 weeks, Lucas and Brianna fell into a new rhythm. He still stopped by the diner most nights, but now they also had proper dates. A movie one night, a walk through the botanical gardens another evening, a Sunday afternoon at a street fair where Brianna convinced him to try fried dough, and Lucas won her a stuffed elephant at a ring toss game. "This is ridiculous," Brianna said, laughing as she accepted the enormous plush toy. "I have nowhere to put this in my apartment." "Then I will keep it at my place until you need it," Lucas said, and Brianna's expression shifted into something softer. "You are really sweet, you know that." "Only with you." They were taking things slow, neither wanting to rush something that felt increasingly important. Lucas met Brianna's brother Ben one afternoon at the hospital where he was having his pre-surgery consultations. Ben was polite but clearly protective of his sister, asking Lucas pointed questions about his intentions until Brianna told him to stop interrogating her boyfriend. "Is that what I am?" Lucas asked later as they walked to the parking lot. "Your boyfriend," Brianna blushed, "if you want to be." "I probably should have asked before announcing it to my brother." Lucas stopped walking and turned her to face him. "I absolutely want to be your boyfriend. I have wanted that since about the third night I sat in your section pretending to be interested in meatloaf." "Hey, Earl's meatloaf is excellent." "It really is not." Brianna laughed and kissed him, right there in the hospital parking lot with the afternoon sun beating down on them. It was their first real kiss, and Lucas felt it all the way down to his toes. Things progressed naturally from there. Lucas brought Brianna to his apartment one evening, watching nervously as she took in the floor-to-ceiling windows and expensive furniture. "This is intimidating," she said honestly. "This is like something from a magazine." "It is just a place I sleep," Lucas said. "It has never really felt like home." Brianna walked to the window and looked out at the city lights. "What would make it feel like home?" Lucas came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "You being in it helps." They cooked dinner together that night, or more accurately, Brianna cooked while Lucas chopped vegetables and tried not to get in the way. She moved around his kitchen with confident ease, and Lucas found himself imagining many more nights like this, the two of them building a life together. "You are staring," Brianna said without looking up from the stove. "Sorry. You are just beautiful. Even in my old jeans and your borrowed apron, especially then." After dinner, they curled up on his couch and watched one of Brianna's favorite classic films. Lucas had never seen Casablanca before, but he found himself getting invested in the story, or maybe just in the way Brianna quoted along with her favorite lines. "You have seen this 100 times, Lucas observed. "At least. My mom loved old movies. We used to watch them together every Sunday." Brianna's voice went quiet. "I miss her, both of them." Lucas pulled her closer. "Tell me about them." So Brianna did, sharing memories of her parents while the movie played on in the background. Lucas listened, filing away every detail, learning the shape of the losses that had brought Brianna to where she was today. "They would have liked you," Brianna said eventually. "My dad would have given you the protective father speech, but he would have liked you. I wish I could have met them." "Me too." The movie ended, but neither of them moved. Finally, Brianna said, "I should probably head home. I have an early shift tomorrow. Or you could stay," Lucas suggested carefully. "I have a guest room. No pressure. I just do not like the idea of you driving home this late." Brianna studied him. "Just sleep. Whatever you are comfortable with." She stayed, and they did just sleep, curled up together in Lucas's bed with the city lights filtering through the windows. Lucas had never felt more content than he did falling asleep with Brianna in his arms. The next morning he woke to find her already up, standing by the window in one of his shirts, looking out at the view. "Good morning," he said, his voice still rough with sleep. "Morning. I did not mean to wake you." Lucas joined her at the window. "What are you thinking about?" "How different our lives are." Brianna leaned into him. "I look at this view, and I think about my cramped apartment where I can hear my neighbors arguing through the walls. I think about how you have meetings with important people while I am taking orders for eggs and hash browns. And I wonder if this can really work." "Do you want it to work?" "Yes, so much." Brianna turned to face him. "But I also do not want to be some fantasy for you, Lucas. I need you to see the reality of who I am and what my life looks like." "I see you," Lucas said firmly. "I see someone who works harder than anyone I have ever met, who sacrificed her own dreams to take care of her brother, who treats strangers with kindness, and makes terrible diner coffee taste bearable just by being the one who pours it. I see you, Brianna, and I am falling in love with everything I see." Brianna's eyes filled with tears. "That is not fair. You cannot just say things like that." "Why not, if it is true?" "Because I am falling in love with you too, and it terrifies me." Lucas kissed her then, slow and deep and full of promise. When they finally broke apart, he said, "Let's be terrified together." A week later, Ben had his surgery. Lucas took the day off work to sit with Brianna in the waiting room, holding her hand through the long hours until the surgeon came out to tell them everything had gone perfectly. "Thank God," Brianna breathed, sagging against Lucas in relief. "Thank God." When they were finally allowed to see Ben in recovery, he was groggy but smiling. "Hey, sis, still alive?" "You better be." Brianna gripped his hand. "You scared me." "Sorry." Ben's eyes drifted to Lucas. "Thanks for being here, man. Means a lot, of course." Later, when Ben was sleeping and Brianna had stepped out to call the diner, Lucas approached the nurse's station. He had already made arrangements with the hospital billing department earlier that week, but he wanted to confirm everything was in place. "The balance on Ben Shaw's account," Lucas said quietly. "It has been taken care of, correct?" The nurse checked her computer. "Yes, sir. Paid in full. The family should not receive any bills." "Good. And they do not know who paid." "As you requested, it is listed as coming from the hospital's assistance fund." Lucas nodded his satisfaction and returned to the waiting room before Brianna could notice he was gone. He knew she would be furious if she found out he had paid for Ben's surgery, but Lucas could not stand by and watch her struggle with another financial burden. He would deal with her anger if and when she discovered the truth. For now, he just wanted to give her this one piece of peace. 2 months into their relationship, things between Lucas and Brianna had settled into something that felt permanent and real. They spent most nights together, alternating between his apartment and hers, though Lucas privately thought her cramped one-bedroom had more warmth than his expensive penthouse ever would. He had met Brianna's friends from the diner, enduring their friendly interrogation and eventual approval. Brianna had charmed his business partner and made his mother laugh, which Lucas considered nothing short of miraculous. They were building a life together, piece by piece, and Lucas had never been happier. Then one evening, Brianna came storming into his apartment with fury written all over her face. "You paid for Ben's surgery." Lucas's stomach dropped. "Brianna, let me explain." "Explain what? How you went behind my back and spent thousands of dollars on my family without telling me. How you made me feel like an idiot for worrying about the bills when you had already taken care of them." Her voice was shaking with anger. "I told you I did not need rescuing, Lucas. I know, and I was not trying to rescue you. I was trying to help. Without asking me. Without even telling me." Lucas ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Because I knew you would say no. I knew you would let pride get in the way of accepting help you desperately needed. It is not pride, it is self-respect. It is maintaining some kind of equality in this relationship instead of being the charity case you take pity on." "You are not a charity case," Lucas said, his own anger rising now. "You are the woman I love, and when someone you love is struggling, you help them. That is what people do. Not without asking. Not by making unilateral decisions and keeping secrets." Brianna's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Do you have any idea how it felt to find out from the hospital billing department that some anonymous donor had paid off everything? To realize it had to be you and know that you had been lying to me for weeks?" "I did not lie. I just did not mention it." "That is the same thing, and you know it." They stared at each other across his living room, both breathing hard. Finally, Lucas said, "I am sorry." "You are right. I should have told you. But I am not sorry I did it, Brianna. Your brother needed that surgery, and you were tearing yourself apart trying to figure out how to pay for it. I had the means to help, so I did. That is not how relationships work. You cannot just throw money at problems and expect everything to be okay." "Then tell me how it does work," Lucas challenged, "because I am doing my best here, and I do not know what you want from me." "I want you to see me as your equal," Brianna's voice broke. "I want to feel like I bring something to this relationship besides problems for you to solve. I want to matter for more than just being someone you can rescue." The fight went out of Lucas all at once. He crossed to Brianna and took her hands, not caring that she tried to pull away. "You are my equal. You are more than my equal in every way that matters. You are smarter and kinder and stronger than I will ever be. I did not pay for that surgery because I see you as someone who needs rescuing. I did it because I love you and I could not stand to watch you carry that burden alone." "You should have told me," Brianna said, but her voice had lost its sharp edge. "You are right. I am sorry. I will not make decisions like that without talking to you first." Lucas squeezed her hands. "But Brianna, if we are going to be together, really together, you need to let me be part of your life. All of it, including the hard parts." "I am not used to having someone to share the hard parts with," Brianna admitted. "It has been just me and Ben for so long." "Well, now it is me and Ben and you, and we figure things out together." Brianna finally met his eyes. "I am still mad at you. That is fair. And you are taking me and Ben out to dinner so you can apologize to him too for being so high-handed. Done. And you are never, ever keeping something like this from me again. I promise." Brianna let out a long breath and stepped into his arms. "I love you too, you know, even when you are being an arrogant, wealthy, well-meaning idiot." Lucas laughed and held her tight. "I love you even when you are being stubborn and refusing help you need. We are kind of a mess, are not we? The best kind of mess." They worked through it, the way couples do when they are committed to finding solutions rather than winning arguments. Lucas apologized to Ben, who was more amused than offended by the whole situation. Brianna made an effort to let Lucas into the parts of her life she had been keeping separate, and Lucas learned to consult rather than assume. The seasons changed, and their relationship deepened. Lucas found himself thinking about forever, about building a life with Brianna that went beyond dates and sleepovers. He wanted her in his space permanently, wanted to wake up to her every morning, wanted to make all the big and small decisions together. 6 months after their first date, Lucas took Brianna back to Rosie's diner. They sat in the same booth where he had spent a month falling for her, and Donna came over with a knowing smile. "Well, look who it is, our favorite love story." Donna set down water glasses. "The usual." "Actually," Lucas said, his heart pounding, "we are celebrating tonight. Can we see a dessert menu? We are celebrating." Brianna looked confused. "What are we celebrating?" Lucas reached across the table and took both her hands. "6 months ago, I took a wrong turn and ended up at this diner." "Best wrong turn of my life." "Lucas, you are being weird." "I know, let me finish." Lucas took a breath. "You changed everything for me, Brianna. Before I met you, I was just going through the motions. Work, sleep, repeat. But you reminded me what it felt like to be excited about something, to look forward to each day. You made me want to be better, do better." "Where are you going with this?" Brianna's voice was trembling. Lucas slid out of the booth and dropped to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Brianna's hand flew to her mouth. "I love you. I love your strength and your compassion and the way you hum when you think nobody is listening. I love the life we have been building together, and I want to keep building it for the rest of my life." Lucas opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Brianna Shaw, will you marry me?" Tears were streaming down Brianna's face now. "Yes, yes, of course yes." Lucas slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her while Donna and the few other customers in the diner burst into applause. When they finally broke apart, both laughing and crying, Brianna said, "I cannot believe you proposed to me in a diner. It is our diner. It felt right. It is perfect." Brianna kissed him again. "You are perfect. I am really not perfect for me then." They got married 4 months later in a simple ceremony at the church where Brianna sang in the choir. Ben walked her down the aisle, and Lucas's mother cried through the entire ceremony. It was small and intimate, just family and close friends, exactly what they both wanted. For their honeymoon, Lucas took Brianna to Italy, where they spent 2 weeks eating incredible food and exploring ancient cities. Brianna's joy was infectious, and Lucas found himself seeing everything through her eyes, appreciating details he would have missed on his own. "Thank you," Brianna said one evening as they watched the sunset over the Amalfi Coast. "For what?" "For being patient with me. For not giving up when I was too scared to believe this could work." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "For seeing me." "Always," Lucas promised. "I will always see you." When they returned home, they began the process of truly merging their lives. Brianna moved into Lucas's apartment, though they immediately started looking for a house that would feel like theirs rather than his. Something with a yard and guest room for Ben, who was doing well in physical therapy and talking about going back to school. Brianna gave her notice at the diner, and though Lucas knew she was excited about finally having time to pursue her degree, he also knew part of her would miss the regulars and the routine she had maintained for so long. "End of an era," she said on her last shift, accepting hugs from Donna and Earl and the other staff who had become her second family. "Beginning of a new one," Lucas corrected, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Brianna enrolled in online classes to complete her education degree, and Lucas watched with pride as she threw herself into her studies with the same determination she brought to everything else. She was brilliant, and it made him angry all over again that she had been forced to put her dreams on hold for so long. "I am thinking about elementary education," Brianna told him one night as they reviewed housing listings. "2nd or 3rd grade, maybe. That age when kids are still excited about learning. You will be an amazing teacher. I hope so. It feels surreal that I am actually going to get to do this." Lucas kissed the top of her head. You deserve every good thing, Brianna Prescott. I like the sound of that, Brianna Prescott. She grinned up at him. Very official. They found a house 6 weeks later, a charming craftsman with a big kitchen and a backyard perfect for the dog Brianna wanted to adopt. Moving in together was chaotic and wonderful, and Lucas loved every minute of it. He loved picking out furniture with Brianna, loved arguing about paint colors and compromising on artwork. He loved making their house into a home. One evening, about a year after their wedding, Lucas came home to find Brianna in the kitchen wearing one of his old shirts and dancing to music only she could hear. She was stirring something on the stove, and the whole house smelled amazing. "What are you making?" Lucas asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Apple pie, from my grandmother's recipe. I promised you one, remember? I remember everything about you." Brianna turned in his arms, her face glowing with happiness. "I have news. Good news, the best news." She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "We are pregnant." Lucas felt his heart stop and restart. "Really, really? I took 3 tests to be sure. We are going to have a baby." Lucas pulled her close, overwhelmed with emotion. They had talked about children, but it had always been someday, sometime in the future. The reality of it was stunning and perfect. "I love you," he said fiercely. "I love you so much. I love you too. We are going to be parents, Lucas." They stood in their kitchen, holding each other and dreaming about the future. Lucas thought about the wrong turn that had brought him to Rosie's diner, about the month he had spent working up the courage to ask out a waitress who had captured his heart with a smile. He thought about all the moments that had led them to this one, and he was grateful for every single one. 7 months later, they welcomed a daughter into the world. They named her Grace Margaret Prescott, after both their mothers, and Lucas fell in love all over again the moment he held her. Brianna was a natural mother, patient and loving and endlessly creative. She finished her degree when Grace was 6 months old, balancing classes and motherhood with the same grace she brought to everything. Lucas supported her however he could, taking on more baby duties and cutting back his own hours at work. "You do not have to do that," Brianna protested when he announced he was promoting his very capable VP to take on more day-to-day operations. "I want to. I missed too much of my own childhood with my father always at work. I do not want to miss Grace's." Brianna kissed him. "You are going to be such a good dad." He tried to be. He changed diapers and walked the floor during late-night crying sessions. He learned lullabies and baby-proofed their house. He took Grace to the park and made silly faces to get her to laugh. And through it all, he marveled at the family he and Brianna had built together. When Grace was 2, Brianna got her first teaching job at a local elementary school. Lucas watched her prepare her classroom with the same attention to detail she brought to everything, and he knew her students were going to be lucky to have her. "I am nervous," she admitted the night before her first day. "You are going to be incredible," Lucas assured her. "Those kids have no idea how fortunate they are." She was incredible. Within weeks, she was calling him with stories about her students, her love for teaching evident in every word. Lucas had never been prouder of anyone in his life. They settled into their new normal. Brianna teaching, Lucas running his company with renewed passion now that he had better balance, Grace growing and changing every day. They hosted dinners for Ben, who had graduated and started his own physical therapy practice. They made friends with their neighbors and became active in their community. On a cool autumn evening, 5 years after Lucas had first walked into Rosie's diner, he and Brianna stood in their backyard watching Grace play with their golden retriever, Cooper. "Do you ever think about how different our lives could have been?" Brianna asked, leaning into him. "All the time. If I had not taken that wrong turn, if you had been on a different shift, if I had not worked up the courage to ask you out. I am glad you did. All of it." Lucas turned her to face him. "I have never regretted a single moment, not one. You gave me everything I did not even know I was missing." "We gave each other everything," Brianna corrected. She smiled up at him, the same warm smile that had captivated him years ago. "I love you, Lucas Prescott. Today and always." "Today and always," Lucas echoed, kissing his wife as their daughter's laughter rang out across the yard. It had started with coffee and conversation in a roadside diner. It had grown into something neither of them could have imagined. A love story for the ages, built on patience and trust, and taking chances on the unexpected. And as Lucas held Brianna close, watching the life they had created together, he knew he would take that wrong turn 1,000 times over if it meant ending up exactly here, exactly now, with everything he had ever wanted right in his arms.